Cooney, loser, bold guy. Cooney, 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 Cooney. Cooney, 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 Cooney. Cooney, 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 Cooney. Cooney, Cooney, upstays alive.
All right. Welcome back to Raccoon Tweeties. On today's episode, we have my good friend, John JT Parr. He made it all the way from the west side. No,
I don't live on the west side.
I know. I just like to say that.
Dude, Burbank, dog.
I have this bit with John and other people. I got to stop looking in the camera, too.
You got
I've
to
been
call
doing
me
a Jim Halpert.
JT, too. You knew me before I started doing the bro thing.
That's
you knew me as a bro, but before.
There's so many bits.
Yeah.
JT, what was I talking? Oh, yeah. I say that JT is from the west side because anytime somebody makes it in comedy, for some reason, I assume they live on the west side. Right. And it's a bit I do. It's probably a power move of some kind.
Yeah. Right. You're a west side
from a loser.
guy now.
A loser power move.
No, I think I feel like a loser. So maybe I was in the west side for like a weekend doing an Airbnb. I shopped that a little bit.
Airbnb. I've been to those.
Dude, that's the thing. I get mealy mouthed. So I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, about like shops? Don't worry about it. Dude.
Like it's like if we're all going to be going after malapropisms, like I'm done, dude.
Oh yeah,
I'm done.
We do them too. Whenever we do it on the pod, whenever we say a word wrong, we go, oh, we're just like Shab, and then we move on.
Yeah, and then I buy a fish.
Yeah, we're balls deep in looking stupid.
Yeah.
Do you know where we met, right?
Yes, I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
It was Big Wang's. Outside Big Wang's on Cahuenga.
Nah, dude. Was it? Really?
I remember the situation.
Are you telling me? Because I thought it was Flappers.
No, I think it was Big Wang's.
Okay, what happened to Big Wang's?
We were outside, and I was arguing with Jeff Carasalis, who's a crazy ex-Marine who does stand-up and is a very combative person. And every time I see him, till this day, he still DMs me about how the world's ending.
Me too.
Because he kind of wants that to happen because he'd be so well suited for it. Like he has a real skill set. Well, he's good with tools and he's good with guns. Like what else do you need in a post-apocalyptic world?
Right, but he's like in the apocalyptic movies, the guys that are good with guns and good with tools aren't like sidelined by not being able to remember names and like kind of being stupid.
Well,
like really dumb.
And he's going to be complaining. You know, his big thing is he still talks about how everyone's a networker. He's been in comedy for like 10 years and I've seen him network too.
Right. He networks too. He's a networker. And part of the reason that he says networker is because he can't remember people's names. He called me Jacob a few times.
He thinks you're a networker if you just are friends with people and know their names. But me and him he would always yell at me that I was like a spoiled rich kid and that I'm like a douche and a pussy and all this different shit. And, but then he would ask me to like go play pool with him the next day. So we have a complicated relationship, I guess. Yeah. But I was making fun of him because he's like, I'm a man, like I'm a badass. I'm like, bro, you've been doing stand up for longer than you were a Marine. You are an artist. Like you're a pussy now. And then he was like, I'm not. And I'm like, you're an artist. And it was really pissing him off that I was. And then you came over and you're like, hey, are you calling Carasalis an artist? I was like, yeah. And then you just started picking on him too, as I recall.
That's a real bonding experience because Carasalis pisses everybody off. He's like a real jerk, you know. I mean, I like him too. It's weird. I have a strange relationship with him too.
He's compelling. Yeah. He's been through a lot. He does insane things that you got to take a break from him for a little bit. But overall, I think he's I think he does have a good heart. Yeah.
If he hasn't pushed you to the point where you want to punch him in the face that time, then he's okay.
The first time I met him was at Flappers and he was going up and down the bar area and he was just screaming at people. He was being really obnoxious.
Yeah.
And he had a broken nose. And then at me to like kind of get under his skin and go, hey, how'd you break your nose? He goes, long story. And then I was like, no, short story. You got punched for being annoying. Yeah. And then he was, oh, shut up, bitch. And then he just kept walking.
That was his comeback.
Yeah.
Shut up, bitch.
He doesn't say bitch. He might have said something else, but it was in that.
Yeah, he's interesting. He DMs, like you said, he DMs me. He hasn't done it recently, but during the pandemic, he would like DM me like, hey man, it's so crazy that they all don't know it's going to end soon. And then like some clip of like a random fire somewhere. It's like, I don't know what that means. He's like, oh, or when I post a show or when I used to post a show, he'd be like, people still telling their little jokes.
Yeah.
He won't come out. A lot of times he won't come out and insult you. Like he'll do an insult that's clearly about you, but coach it in like them or like these people doing it, but it's clearly he's talking about you.
Yeah.
Like just say it. You served in the war.
Most
like,
of the time
why are
he
you such
says
a
it
coward.
to me. Most of the time he'll say
To you.
you are the problem.
He hasn't done it to me.
I miss when I was on drugs more, me and him would really get into it because I would like really want to argue with him. I have less energy for it now, but I haven't seen him in a while. I do kind of miss him. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
And I did tell him during COVID when I was scared the world was going to end, I did say, he was like, the world's going to end. And I said, Jeff, wherever you end up, send me the coordinates and like, I'll come help. Like I'll clean and cook and you can do all the cool stuff.
That would be a great sitcom. An insane war vet, and then you as a homemaker or something.
Yeah, which I'm pretty bad at too.
JT and
I
Jeff.
hope YouTube still works so I can figure out how to cook eggs. But yeah, I'd be there trying to help.
He'd be a good character, but you're right. He's like an artist. I mean, he was in that Iraq
Generation
show.
Kill was a great show.
Did I ever tell you
David
how I
Simon.
realized? Yeah, I liked it too. Did I ever tell you how I realized he was in it?
How?
I was like, I put it on and I was walking around the house because I do this bit. I don't know when I started doing it, but I just put on a show and do other stuff, and I get
of
like
course.
a very little amount of the show actually gets watched. So I'm doing something, and all of a sudden I hear, "Goddamn Haji doing," or something like that, and I'm like, "What the? That sounds exactly like Jeff." And I look up, and it is Jeff. It's like something he said at an open mic,
Right.
But about Haji.
They didn't script his dialogue.
That might have to be bleeped, but I don't know if I'm allowed to even say that as
Is
Jeff.
that a bad word now? Yeah,
Probably.
right.
I mean, now.
You know, Jeff was interesting too because sometimes he would go up at like Tao open mic where they were very
Right.
They wanted you to be
Yeah.
careful about what you said, and then Jeff would just like it'd be water off a duck's back, and he'd go up and say whatever he want, and he'd do a joke about like trans people and like dicks flying off and stuff, and then after that, like, the room would be kind of scared, and
Right.
then Jeff would get into like war stuff, and he'd be like, I was in 24 firefights, and I've seen 15-year-olds killed, Iraqis, brains out on the floor. He's like, I got more respect for them than I do for you. And I was like, this isn't stand up, but it's very compelling. I was like this is raw, real, interesting. I was like, it was kind of a nice tonic sometimes to like bits.
And I do want to thank him for his service.
For
Thank
sure.
you. Not the part where you saw you may or may not have killed those kids you just mentioned. And
Yeah, maybe this is how I recollect it. It might not be what he said.
Yeah,
I
this
don't want
is-
to get him. I don't want to get my boy canceled.
canceled.
For war
He's going to
crimes.
get canceled. This is the only way he could
That
possibly
would
be
be
canceled.
not chill of me if he went down for a war crime.
I like this. It's great to have on people that I did stand up with because we get to go back and talk about the crazy shit that we did. Like Tao open mic, for
It's
instance.
a good one.
Tao was an open mic in LA, which is probably still around, but it's ran by a woman named Bobby Oliver and her husband Chris. And Chris would go up at the beginning of was it Chris that went up at
Yeah,
the
Chris
beginning?
Oliver.
Yeah, he would go up at the beginning of the mic and he'd be like, "Now, we don't like jokes about how women are being beaten. No, there's no domestic violence jokes. No jokes about rape. No racist, like just common sense stuff." And he's like, "Now, if you want to do that, there's plenty of places to do that. Okay, there's flappers.
He'd say go to Marty's,
Go to Marty's.
right? Because Marty's was like that was really like the
That was the
kind of
only thing you're
jokes.
allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
Marty's. Yeah.
Which was interesting. But that was what was cool about open mics too, is that like each one had its own like kind of a philosophy behind it. And like if you went to an East Side mic, there was stuff you couldn't say there that you could say at like Marty's. And stuff you could say at Marty's you could never say
Anywhere.
anywhere
Yeah.
else.
Anywhere
to
else.
Any
Yeah. I would go to the lighter version of Marty's, rock, paper,
Yeah.
or like something like that.
Strider brought his now fiance to Marty's on like their 5th date.
Whoa. And did he do comedy just to like watch it?
Just to like show her what his day was like. And then like Marty like made inappropriate comments, like
About his girlfriend?
kind of like, I think he wasn't, when he saw Strider bring a girl in, he was like, "Hey, are you guys going to be here in like 2 comics? I want to do my set for you." And then he did his set and it was a lot of,
Pedophilia jokes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Rape
Yeah.
jokes. All.
I never watched. You went though.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about it before. I tweeted once about how there was an open mic where they said, I was told that no one ever went there. The host opens up with about 15 minutes of pedophilia jokes, and you have to pay $5, and that mic lasted for 7+ years.
It was an institution. Yeah.
The Wayans brothers went there, and there are pictures of them on the wall.
Damon, the junior, that was like where he came up before he got New Girl. That was like the big thing that he was like the guy who made it out of there and like became
really?
a big deal. I think so.
Marlon went there too, though, right?
I'm pretty sure. I think all the Wayans,
all the
they pal
Wayans
around
brothers,
together.
And they would go there.
just kinda saying that.
Jamar, Jamar loved that place. Jamar Neighbors.
Hilarious guy.
Hilarious comedian. I never went.
I have a funny story. I used to do a really inappropriate joke about pedophiles, and I would pretend to be a pedophile during it, and like I would act out like sucking a kid's dick. It was not the best joke, and I wouldn't do it today.
Right.
But I committed to it hard,
Right,
and I
right.
did it at Improv Space on the West Side. And then the next day I was driving home from the gym, and Rishi Arya called me, and he's like, "Hey man, people are calling you out on Facebook. It's bad."
Yeah.
And I was like, it was like my heart dropped, and I pulled over, and 2 comics were posting about how they saw the most disgusting thing they had ever seen, and they were talking about me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
remember.
was like pretty hurt. I felt betrayed by them because they talked to me after the set and were like nice to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why don't you call me out then? Why'd you do it like online?" And they wouldn't let me reply to it because I wasn't friends with them on Facebook and defend myself. And I remember Bobby Oliver weighed in, and she was like, "I wonder if these comics like do those bits in front of their mom." And I had done that bit in front of my mom, and she laughed really hard. And then
Take that, Bobby.
I went to Tao
Candace Whole Foods.
I went to Tao that night, and one of the guys who had posted about me was coming to Tao, and I wasn't gonna fight him, but I went up to Chris and I was like, "Yo, these guys called me out on Facebook. I don't know if you saw, but I'm gonna talk to him about it, and it could be awkward." And Chris was just like, "Why are you telling me all this?" And I was like, and then I talked to the guy, and I was like, I was more like sad. I was like, "Dude, that really hurt me that you did that. Like, you should call me out in person." He was like, "I don't know you. Why would I talk to you about it? I don't know who you are." And then we were never good after that, but
That guy's a fucking
interesting.
pussy. I remember when that happened. I remember when that
He
happened.
was kind of a puss.
I talked to you about it because I
Yeah.
saw online. I was like, I read this idiot status, and it was like, "Oh, this guy did this really offensive joke," and the last person I thought was you because I don't know the bit. So I was like reading that, and I never really thought that guy was funny anyways, just some like boring loser. And so like and then when I found out it was you, I just like completely tanked my already negative opinion of this like personality-less like zero.
Right.
You know, and then I hate when people pretend like they don't know people. I think there's a strong possibility that he was pretending not to know. He's like, "This guy I've never seen." Meanwhile, you like hosted the open mic at Flappers.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Tao all the time. Highly unlikely that he has no idea who you are.
Right.
So, you know,
I did feel a little betrayed, but I think I've also like changed a little bit where back then I was like more like anything goes. And now I'm like, no, like, you know, you got to be a little careful or like not even like you can do bits like that. But if people get mad at you, you can't really be hurt.
right.
Like,
You probably I don't know the bit.
I
but
shouldn't have been doing the
It
bit.
doesn't sound like you probably should not have a bit where you suck off a kid.
yeah. And I'd like to tell everyone listening now that I understand that. now.
Allegedly.
I'm sorry it took
you
me.
allegedly had that.
I'm sorry it took me till 27.
I mean,
to
I
know that.
had really bad bits. If you go back, I didn't have pedophilia.
Yeah, a lot-
stuff. I
no,
had
bad,
like race
bad,
stuff that was
a lot
really
of race
stupid.
stuff.
I wouldn't
And
do
always
now.
about Cambodian people. I'm kidding.
I used to say the word bitch all the time.
Bitch?
Yeah.
It's a good word.
Yeah, it is. But there was a period in time when I was learning comedy where you couldn't say bitch.
Right.
LA is a lot more sensitive to that stuff because they're in tune to like, you know, what you some of the I don't know what I'm saying. Like they're more hyper aware of things than East Coast.
And I think it makes you better because
Yeah.
then you got to be smarter about
Right.
how you can still talk about the same stuff. You just got to be smarter. But then
Yeah.
I also think too, what's funny is that like, I think if I was in a place where everyone was doing bits like that, I would go the other way and be like really clean or more polite. But because people were being so sensitive about stuff, there was a part of my brain that wanted to like fight against that.
Yeah.
It's like whoever you're around, comedians were naturally contrarian. You're going to want to fight against it, even though that's kind of an immature motivation.
You know who I love now that the first time I met him I did not like was the Schmoll.
Oh, Kevin.
Kevin, yeah. Because here's what your story reminded me of the first time I saw Kevin. Kevin Fard, he would go to the Hollywood Hotel mic and just say the craziest shit that I've ever seen someone do. And this one bit really, he kept doing the first few times I saw him. The bit was he had roofied his sister. The premise was that he had roofied his sister. So I was like, I do not like this guy. I don't know why he's telling this joke, but then I realize he's like a normal person in real life and hilarious.
And a really good guy. Like Kevin's a lawyer, and
he did not roofiest,
and he would defend comedians in court for free, and like helped a ton of guys.
I didn't know that.
And gals get their tickets reduced or taken away, and like he helped Joe buy a car. Like when he found out my girlfriend was pregnant, he sent me like tons of articles about like. What's the best like crib to buy and stuff like that. Like he's a very sweet guy. He's just abrasive. And me and him have had a lot of conflict. Like he was in our show, but we had like a big fight like 2 years ago that was like so stupid. That's one of the things I want to talk about like with podcasting is like I don't think anyone should be talking this much on mic because if people review anyone's life, that's basically what they're doing. They're like reviewing our lives.
Right.
You're going to come across like an inconsistent moron because we all are. Like all people are like that.
I agree.
And like, so this is one of those instances with me and Kevin where I was annoyed with him because I didn't think he was like being very kind to me. And I always felt like he was kind of like a little disrespectful with how he talked to me. And like, the thing was though, is like my partner Chad loves it. He doesn't take any of it personal. He gets a huge kick out of Kevin when he's like that. I'm more sensitive and so I wanted Kevin to stop doing it, but I didn't know how to communicate that. And he says I never tried, but I feel like I did. Who knows?
You probably did. Kevin doesn't understand. He doesn't have the same awareness of other people, how they react to like what he does that other people have.
Right. So that's what I said. And then he was like, I was like, bro, I tried. You didn't hear me. So I went this other route because that was the only way to get you to like pay attention to this thing. But what happened is like we booked him on a stand-up show and he liked to have us call him daddy. And like I'm an idiot. Like I'm like, no, I'm not calling you daddy. Chad's like, what's up, daddy? And like by Chad doing that, he proves that he's his own daddy because he just doesn't care. But I'm not capable of that.
I would never call Far daddy.
Right. You're with me on this, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Or keep going. Sorry. Yeah.
So I told Kevin he couldn't do our stand-up show unless he called me daddy. He refused. It was like a month out. And he would message me in a week and be like, I'm not calling you daddy. I was like, you're not on the show. Yeah. And then we did the show without him.
That's like, stupid on his part. And
no one, like Maurice, like when people get in the comments on like these other podcasts and they're like, all these grown men are like children. This is like that in a nutshell. Like, Maurice had to call him and he's like, JT, you took it too far with Kevin. It's not a bit if you really don't let him on the show. And I'm like, no, that's what makes it a bit is that I went all the way through with it. And then Kevin messaged me. He's like, oh, you really got me good. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And then we argued for like 3 days. But then we reached I kind of think fighting's good for friendship sometimes because it makes you get out all this stuff and then you're closer afterwards. Stuff's
for
out
sure.
of the way.
Yeah, it's good to talk it out, and like let it all out and try and come to an understanding. And then you hope the other person is like, yeah, I'm cool with it.
You and me have never had a single bad conversation, I feel like.
I don't think so, but you probably hang out with Kevin and Tom or Joe way more than you hang out with me.
You think we would if we hung
No,
out
not
more?
Necessarily. I think we have very similar points of views on things.
Yeah, we're
right?
pretty simpatico. You said something funny. We saw each other in an open mic like 2 years ago. And I've been a good boy and I try to be polite to people. I mean, I've been a jerk to people, but nothing too bad. But I was like, we were talking about like all the sexual impropriety stuff that was going on and people getting in trouble. And he looked at me and he goes, JT promised me one thing. You won't Me Too yourself. like you were scared. You were scared because I have a need to confess that I was going to write like a huge post of every wrong thing I've ever done in my life. And you're like, dude, just promise me one thing. Don't Me Too yourself.
I probably did say
that bad that I said
No.
that? Okay.
Don't, because I've talked about that on another podcast, not you, but you're not the only person I've said that to.
Oh, really?
The reason that I said that, and I referenced this on another pod, so I'll say it again, was Greg Cashmanian canceled himself.
Right.
And not what he did was wrong, obviously, but never do that. Never Me Too yourself because nothing good comes from that.
Right. You think it almost felt like he was trying to get like credit for getting out in front of it. And people aren't going to respond that way if you're the perpetrator.
No.
What did he do?
I don't want to rehash that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I generally don't know. I just remember it was a big thing.
Well, I just want to say something really quick is that you guys have the most general names in your little friend groups.
Like
Joe,
Tom.
A lot of whiteys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm half Colombian. Everyone thinks I'm Jewish, but a lot
and
of
then
whiteys.
Kevin is Farsi.
He's Persian.
Persian, yeah, he's Persian.
And he's big on that, dude. He got a tattoo. Again, like he's on the right side of things, like in a big way. Like he got a tattoo for the women of Iran.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
good.
That's an impulse right there.
There's one Kevin story that encapsulates like how he really does not pick up on other people think. And I'll botch it because I won't remember all the details. But one time I was at Fourth Wall, shocker, and Kevin was there. And there's this funny comic that's like real loud from Minnesota. Isn't it Connor Hangles something or other? Connor Hangsblad or
I don't remember.
I don't know. He was on stage and he really doesn't give a fuck what he says. But he was going off and he said something to Fard like about somebody we all know. And Fard's like, I don't know who that is. And Connor's like, you don't know who that is? And he kind of got mad at Fard. And a lot of the people at Fourth Wall, for the reasons we've mentioned, have like a chip on their shoulder towards Fard. So, but Fard picks up on none of this, right? He's like, doesn't understand that as everyone is mad at him. And Connor is doing this bit where he said that there was this girl that like he said her name, he Instagrammed it and saying that he said RIP and then her name, like she's dead, which is a pretty fucked up thing to do. Yeah. But all these people were like messaging him like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? And I forget, I'm really botching because he said that like, oh, that's what, yeah, he goes, if it was Fard, nobody would have messaged me. And we were all laughing. And we're leaving and Fard, like it finally dawns on Fard a little bit that he's like made people mad. Yeah. Cause he was like, he turns to me and he's like, what is up with those guys? I think like one or two of them don't like me. I'm like, they all hate you. Not me. I love you.
No, you messaged me about we had our show or whatever, and you always messaged me saying the Kevin stuff was your favorite.
Oh yeah, I told him that too. The Schmoll episode was my favorite one. I thought it was hilarious.
He was great. And
that was really good.
And a Prince through all of it. Yeah, he's a huge pain in the ass, but I'm a huge pain in the ass too. That's what our fight.
We're all crazy.
You ever in a fight with someone and you're like, I think there's like an old Kurosawa movie where this guy's trying to like find the guy who killed some of his family members, and in the end they're fighting in the mud, and then by the end you can't tell them apart. Like the guys become the same as the guys trying to fight.
Yeah.
That was me and Kevin arguing on the phone. I was like, I can't tell us apart. We're both being so dumb.
You're all Japanese men with mud on your face.
Yeah. And then I tried to tell Kevin that story. He's like, shut the fuck up. He's like, this is why you annoy people. Yeah.
Are all of that guy's movies about like finding the truth or something? Because there's that other one where they tell the story. Is
Dude,
that?
That's always, people always reference that one. It's like, it's different like narrative perspectives. So it's like 4 different people's versions of what happened. By the way, I've never seen any of his movies. I've only read about them. So this is all just from film theory classes.
I think I might have. I've seen 1 or 2 of them, but I don't remember them.
7 Samurai?
I don't think I've seen that one, but I know it's like they remade it into the Magnificent Seven,
yeah, and then
right?
he did some Shakespeare shit.
Yeah.
Dude, also off the me and sex stuff a little bit, I had this crazy story about you wanted me to tell this one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear it again.
Okay, so this is when I did a lot of drugs and I was in like my late 20s. And I used to just do like 100 milligrams of Adderall and go on these whirling dervishes through the night. And I was at Swingers and I saw this kind of interesting looking girl walking around in there, and then she left. And I was like, oh, she looked like she'd be down to hang a little bit. And I just walked up to her car at like 2 a.m. She was in there and I knocked on the window. She rolled it down. I was like, hey, I'm on a lot of drugs. I'm really like looking to connect. Would you like want to talk? And she said, get in. And so I get into the car and we start talking about, her car's a disaster. And we start talking about stuff. She's telling me how like her sister's a prostitute and a drug addict and how the family's like trying to get rid of her, but they don't know what to do. I'm like listening. I'm like, cool. And I'm trying to prove to her that I'm not crazy because of the way I approached. I'm like, she's going to think I'm crazy. So I'm just not even really catching that she's saying a lot of crazy things to me. And then I'm really horny and I'm like, and I have like a Viagra in my pocket to offset the Adderall. I'm like, do you want to go back to my place? And she's like, no, I have to go meet up with my teacher. It's like 3 a.m. And I'm like, your teacher? And she's like, yeah, he like teaches me things. And I was like, okay, cool. Give her my phone number. I'm like, hit me up whenever. She drives away. She calls me like 10 minutes later. She's like, I'm coming over. I'm like, okay. She comes over. We go for a walk around my place. I kind of want to have sex with her. She kind of freaks out. She's like, you have to leave the room and give me 20 minutes to meditate. And then I'm going to take a shower. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go in the other room. I don't think she really meditated because I checked on her and she was just like on her phone laying there. And then, but people like to say they meditate more than they actually meditate. And then she takes the shower. Then she starts kissing me. We have sex. And then the first time we had sex, I wore a condom and I busted. This is important. And then I'm also about to be a father, so sorry to my kids. My girlfriend's pregnant. I love my girlfriend so much. I'm a very different person now. She knows all this shit. And then I want to have sex again. So we start to have sex again, and I don't wear a condom this time, but I don't come. And then afterwards, she starts saying like really crazy stuff to me about like how she does black magic and how she's like putting spells on people and stuff, and how she wants to take me to like a candle place in Pasadena. And then since I've already kind of like had sex and the drugs are wearing off, I start to like come back to a judgmental reality. And I'm like, yo, this girl's like kind of insane. And I was so horny and I wasn't picking up on it. And so she's like, you need to like take me to Pasadena to go to this candle place. And I want to show you like my black magic stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is rude of me, but I'm like, I got to find a way to separate. So I text my brother. I say you need a ride to the airport. My brother calls me. He's like, I need a ride to the airport. I'm like, okay, I got you. Hang up the phone. She's like, you're a fucking liar. She called me out right away. She runs into my bathroom, slams the door. I knock. I'm like, what do you need? Like, how can I help? She's like, get my car out of the garage. I'm leaving. And I'm like, okay, well, that's, I'll apologize, but that's kind of a good conclusion to all this. I move the car. When I come back in, she had taken the condom from our first round and moved it from the toilet into the sink. So I don't know why she did that. I think she did it to like kind of scare me into thinking that maybe she had like, so I'm like instantly I Google like what's like the life expectancy of jizz and like water. And then I tell her, I'm like, hey, you didn't like take my jizz, right? And I'm like, cause like, look at me, like I'm gonna be a bad dad. Like this will be a bad situation. And she's like, no, I didn't fucking take your jizz. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I walk her out to the car. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. We're ending in a fight. I try to kiss her. She like stiff arms me. She drives away. Then she says, you really need to get tested, and sends me 3 videos of her having extreme like group sex. And one of the videos is like a guy who's like super tatted up, has her totally tied up, and he's like penetrating her with a dildo. Then one was like 3 different guys having sex with her, like no one wearing condoms. And she's like, you need to get tested. And then, then that was it. And then I went to bed that morning. I was like, I'm never telling anyone. 4 hours later, I woke up. I told everyone I know. And then I do that story on stage at the Improv like a week afterwards. I'm on Adderall again. I was doing a lot of drugs at the time. And I tell the story. And the story is my entire set. And then I get off, and then Brendan comes up after me and goes, all right, guys, give it up for JT. Let's all hope he goes to Sex Addicts.
Anonymous.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I forgot. Yeah.
And I had done a little bit of Sex Addicts, but you saying that like clarified for me that like, oh, this isn't just like a fun story. Like I have a compulsion that like needs to be investigated. I wish I would have listened, because I got into more Mishigosh before I ended up going to Sex Addicts Anonymous.
That's hilarious. Because it's funny because I told you to say that on stage too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because you told me the story off stage before. Because I like the way I picture it, and also my memory could be wrong, but you told me that story and I thought it was hilarious. I've forgotten some of it. Like I forgot about the group sex and all that. But it was just it blew my mind, because I'm like kind of a degenerate now, but at the time I was a little more straight laced, and you telling me all those, there's like 10 things there where you're like, where you make a decision that where it's like, whoa, that was not the right one. But it was so funny, and it didn't really sound dangerous at the time. We were younger.
Yeah, I was like 28 at the time.
Yeah.
I think.
In the grand scheme of things,
now.
Okay. I thought you said you were 27 earlier. That's why.
We're both 35. I'm 35.
Yeah, I'm 35.
And we are probably late bloomers when it comes to maturity.
I didn't lose my virginity till I was 24.
Yeah, I meant like more like just maturity in general.
Right, that's what we're talking
the two
about.
of
Never
us,
mind
like
I take it back.
Yeah.
The two of us, I don't know if we're like definitely our late 20s. I don't think we're like super mature.
No.
So yeah, that blew my mind. But yeah, now I remember that was at that was probably Locals Only.
Locals
the beginning
Only
of
and
Locals
the
Only.
Improv Lab. That was a
Yeah.
fun show.
You did all that joke. I think you might have done some stuff about drugs, and I said something like, "Yeah, great job, John. Let's hope he gets the help he needs," or something like that. I just did it because comedy is a knife fight, as you know.
Yeah.
And you throw your friends under the bus when you ever
No, but the
to get a
crowd
laugh.
went ballistic when you said that. And all of a sudden, like me thinking I'm just like this fun guy who's like a good time party. I'm like, oh, this whole audience thinks I really need to like look in the mirror a little bit. But I still didn't listen. I spent another year going nuts before I was like, all right, I've hit something.
Yeah, because I think after that is when you started really doing, you did the car accident and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you remember
right?
that too, man.
Yeah.
Man. So I was burning all my parents' money on webcam pornography, trying to get them to force a boundary on me because they were kind of degenerates themselves. So I was like seeing how far I could take it. And then my dad like called me and he's like, what are like, I think I had spent like $10,000 on webcam pornography. And I was spending like 7 hours a day on there. And
Amazing.
doing a lot of Adderall. Yeah, I always say it was fun until it wasn't, until it started having fun with me. And then like, so my parents cut me off. I'm like 28. It's not a sad story. And then, so I stopped partying. I stopped watching webcam pornography. I started driving Uber and I was driving like insane hours. I'd drive, cause I couldn't party anymore. I'd start at like 10 and I'd go till like 8 in the morning. And the way I guess that's not that crazy, but the hours were insane.
That
like
is crazy.
The slot that I picked. And then like the way they gamify Uber, like when you're driving for it, like they always are like, if you do 2 more, we'll give you like $30 more. And you're like, it like fed into my addict brain so
for sure.
easily where I was like, amazing. And I was really like, I had a 5.0 rating and I was like really proud of myself. I was like, dude, I'm like, everything I do, I try to like, you know, whether I'm
really
a sex
well, right?
addict or comedy or whatever it is, I'm like, come on, like, well, let's put our whole heart into this shit.
Comedy.
So,
Do comedy really well. Be a sex addict really
yeah, if
well.
I'm gonna jack off, I'm gonna
the
jack off the
best.
most, and I'm gonna be the best at it. And then so I started helping Chad with stuff, and we shot a video out in Coachella, and I was like, oh, I'll drive Uber. I drove out there for like, I don't know, I might be like over dramatizing it, but I felt like I drove for like 36 straight hours or something, made like tons of money. I was so stoked. And I was driving home and I was trying to change the podcast from S-Town to like the next episode, which was a little manipulative of a podcast. And then I looked down too long. I looked up, I crashed into the car in front of me. That car got catapulted into the car in front of it. And then it was like huge collision. There was like kids, 2 cars up. And like, I just started sobbing on the side of the road. I called my mom. I was like, I'm such a disaster right now. I'm like not safe to be in the world. And my mom was like, it's been a rough couple months, but I'm lucky I was able to come back from it. But then like my parents were just like, dude, you're like colossally fucked up. But then like, it might have happened before.
Like, because of you.
Yeah, I could have said
I wish I was there and be like, it's your fault though. You're the one who did this.
my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're you turned out to be like a great guy. Everybody loves you.
Oh, that's nice, man. Thank you.
But like the the crazy behavior, you probably don't have like the thing telling you not to do some of these things, or at least at the time. And in large part, it's probably their fault.
Yeah, they didn't put the best governor on me.
Right.
And also I think it was a little macho too. Like my friends, I had a reputation for like going the hardest. And so I very much like was like, and I could go really hard and still be nice. That was like something I was very proud of. I was like, I can do drugs for 4 days and not be irritated. Like I must be a superhero. but like, I think like it might've been like a week earlier, like a week later, I forget the timeline, but then I helped Chad with the video and it went viral. And then that was like a shot from God. I was like, okay, I need to like dedicate all my time to this. And then he's so healthy.
Right.
I think he was because he doesn't, at the time, he drinks once in a while now, but he was sober.
Right.
And just like, I never wrote like for stand up. And then I would go on a trip with him and he'd write the whole time and like tweak his jokes, which was like totally novel to me. I was like, this guy's insane. And then, yeah, so it was kind of nice that happened. And then I was like, okay, I have something to put all that chaotic energy into.
Interesting that, success and fame like helped you out of addiction. Whereas most people, when they get that kind of stuff, that leads them closer to that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get like a huge shot of it, and it's been a slow roll and we get recognized and stuff, but it's not like insane. You know what I think it was too, is that like when we did get fans, they'll say stuff to you, like they look up to you or that like you help them with stuff. And so you do feel, or I feel like a responsibility to them where I'm like, well, I really don't want to, like, because when I was being a piece of shit, nobody really cared. You know what I mean? And I was still good to my friends and stuff. But then like, if some kid likes you, you don't want to be...
You don't want to let down one of the guys who's like, Saturdays are for the boys.
Making fun of that guy who recognized me at the store that time.
Yeah, you remember that? You were so
I kind of
petrified.
talked shit to him. I talked shit about him to you guys afterwards. Yeah.
Well, you were like, because you thought I was going to like joke about it. Maybe I probably did. He came up Saturday for the boys and then he walked off and you looked at me like you had this like kind of like.
I was embarrassed. Yeah. And I remember.
I liked it.
I was kind of hard on him. I think I was trying to be like, guys, like I haven't changed. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
so
exactly.
You were like, what did he say? And I was like, oh, it's something dumb people say. And then I was kind of like, that was mean to me. I was like kind of disrespectful to someone who likes me.
I don't think you were disrespectful really.
Right.
It was more me. I was kidding. I like that kind of like the fans knowing your lingo and all that stuff.
Right.
Even though Saturday is for the boys,
it wasn't our lingo.
Is it Barstool?
I think it was like a Barstool thing, and like we had been on. They had posted our
Right.
stuff on
Right.
Barstool, so I think he thought we were like one and the same. And that
Whatever it was,
helped
he
our
seemed like a nice guy.
career tremendous. Most of the guys who like us are like super sweet, super sensitive guys.
Absolutely. At their shows, when they're always very nice to me after the shows.
They got good manners and stuff like that.
And that's a reflection of you.
Hey, come
and
on,
Tom.
man. No, it's you, dude.
It's just an annoying love fest. You know what cracked me up? This never makes other people laugh. Like I laugh when you told me. I don't know why. I just think it's so funny. And I may be misremembering this. So if I say it wrong, correct me. But you, and also if you don't want it on the pod, we'll edit it out. But you were telling me about how you were like,
I'm already laughing. I don't know what you're going to say.
you were like going on a date with one of these webcam people that you found.
Yeah.
You were like on a date with her and you're so genuine. Like you go, so I was talking with her and I was like, hey, I really like you. I want to date you. I want you to be my girlfriend. And she was like, I can't do that. And then you were like, why? And she was like, because I'm a prostitute. No one ever laughs at that, but I just think that's so funny. That cracked me up so hard when you said that.
So yeah, I met this girl, like Midnight Amy, I think was her handle on Streamates. And she like, with those webcam girls, they could get really into your kink.
Yeah.
And it felt like, Brian Vokey described it to me this way. It almost felt like maybe not Transformers, one of those shows where like, there's like a little guy inside your brain who's operating you for you. Like it felt like that. Like they could get so deep into my sexual kink that I was like, oh, I'm not even like alive right now. This person's like, they know what I want so bad that they're like operating my body for me. And so it's very powerful. And then she was like the best at it. Right. Like everything she said, I was like, bro, this is beyond sexual. Like we have like a cosmic connection. And then so I was like, hey, I see you're in LA because it says where you're at. I'm like, would you be okay with like getting coffee with me tomorrow? She's like, yeah, let's do it. Like 4:00. I'm like, okay, cool. I go to therapy. My therapist, who's a sex addicts therapist, is like, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? She's not into you. And I was like, Suzanne, like, I'm pretty charming. I'm pretty sure you weren't there when we were talking. I'm like, she digs me.
Right.
And then, and her big thing was, this is a sex worker. If you go to coffee with her, you have to pay her for her time. So she was like, go to the ATM before you go and get like $100 or whatever she charges. Cause like, if you don't, it's like a crime. She was like very protective of like sex workers. I was like, okay. So I go to the ATM and then I meet up with the girl and, I was like, I want to date you. And then she's like, no. And I was like, why? And she's like, I am a prostitute. And then I was like,
that's so funny.
and I was like, so what do you want to do? And she's like, you can pay me $500 and you can watch me masturbate. And I was like, I would never pay for something like that. Cause to me, the difference between like in real life and over webcam was like, you know, drastic, but it's like not different at all.
No, absolutely.
And then,
I get it.
And Suzanne had told me, she's like, you're like the dumb guy at the strip club who thinks the stripper likes him. I'm like, I'm not stupid like that. And then I, of course I exactly was. And then I still, after she said that, I didn't want to seem like I was only there for like romantic purposes. So I was like, so tell me more about your life. And then she was like, no. And then she just left. And then
I get it, man. Like if when you find somebody that knows exactly what you want, I think that's the reason that like guys like Jay Light and Luke Schwartz still use webcams all the time. They listen to the show, so I wanted to say that.
Can you do me a favor and just screw your mic?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there. Boom. There you go. And then you'll be good to go.
Twist it.
Yeah. Twist it around. Sorry about that.
Nice.
There you go.
These guys probably already know all these stories. I feel like I've told everybody.
Or like, well, I mean,
what's your podcast
Not
called?
our audience.
Going deep with Chad and JT.
Going deep with Chad and JT.
I'm going harder in the paint here because I think they've already heard this stuff. So I'm really
go hard.
to see. And this is like when we were hanging out the most was like the
This is probably
doing
this is
senior
like
stuff.
our history.
So are you sober now?
Once my girlfriend got pregnant, I stopped drinking and smoking weed. So I'm like 3 months off that stuff. And
Oh,
then
congrats.
being in a relationship, I still would watch. I haven't watched Webcam. I had like a couple slips over the last 5 years, but basically like that's like 6 years now. I gave up. I didn't give up weed. I didn't give up booze, but I stopped doing Molly, Adderall, and I stopped watching webcam porn. And now I haven't watched porn in like 2 months, 2 or 3 months. So yeah, I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been.
Nice.
Besides the vaping, but that's not like going to make me act.
Yeah,
nutty.
vaping doesn't make you go crazy. A lot of people vape now.
Yeah, I tell her it's the lesser. Yeah, do you vape?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
You gotta
vapes.
quit, man. It's the lesser of a lot of evils.
Gerardo's Mr. Sober.
Oh yeah. I've been sober for 4 years and like 5 months now.
Oh, dude, hell yeah, man. Are you in the program?
No, not really. Like I was when I first started.
I feel like a lot of people do that. Like they need that initial community for like the thrust to get into it. And then they're like, okay, I kind of got a grip on this thing.
I still have communication with a couple people from it, but as far as going to meetings like coronavirus fucked all that up.
Yeah, dude, I was doing sex addict meetings over, and it was too easy for me to like just turn my screen off and walk away. And like, yeah, it just felt different.
Yeah. I went to AA meetings online at the beginning of coronavirus. And then I was in one meeting and I was like, my grandpa died before coronavirus. And like, now I'm starting to feel all this stuff about it and this and that, it's like super deep. And I was like, damn fool, I really did it, And then everyone was just like, oh, you finished? All right, cool. Let's go to the next one. And then I never went back to another online meeting again.
Dude, that can happen. You can have one bad meeting
Yeah.
and it spoils it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been at some slaw meetings where I was like, these two people are trying to bone. And like, I don't even know if I was mad at that or just that I wasn't included in the attraction or flirt. And then I was like, I'm not going back. Like, cause it's not what I'm looking for, I guess.
Yeah. I went to one Sex and Love's Anonymous meeting. Shit was wild, dude.
It's intense, dude.
Yeah.
You hear crazy, because it's a wide swath of people with like all sorts of different issues and like what's ailing them.
Yeah.
I've heard, and you can't crosstalk. So I've heard guys
Yeah.
in there who are like coming from a very dark place and maybe not totally conscious of it. And Pedro said this the other day, but it was funny, but you just got to let them cook. Like, you're not allowed to say anything back.
Yeah, there was one, I mean, not saying any names, but, and also not really true, but just long story short, this one guy was talking about how he's a teacher and he wants to fuck a student of his.
Yeah. And you have to let those guys
Exactly.
go.
Let them
And-
cook, baby.
And you can talk to them after the fact and stuff. And I am grateful that there's like a place where, like, because I think every person, no matter what you've done, you probably deserve compassion, at least for like a moment out of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they're there. But I used to do a bit about it when I was doing like years ago where I'd be like I would talk about watching too much porn. And then the guy next to me would be like, I molested a kid. And I'd be like, yo, different room. Like, why?
Yeah. That was so funny. Yeah. The thing that made me really laugh that you said was the guy that's like, he's the instructor and he goes, he's like, this is serious stuff. Okay. Like you think you're just addicted to porn now and, having too much sex, but if you keep going with this, you will fuck animals. Yeah, exactly. And he was like dead serious that everyone there was going to like eventually have sex with a dog. It's like, no, not all of us are going to do that.
Yeah. And with addiction stuff, they're like, you have to be, there's like an all in quality to it where like if it's like built into the text of I might be wrong on this too. And this is very sensitive stuff, but like, it's like built into the text of the program where like half measures availed us nothing. Like you have to be fully, submissive is the wrong word, but like,
You have to go as hard sober as you did fucking drunk and shit.
And like if you got issues with it, it's because addiction is so much about control. They're like, you have to have no control in here. But then my brain is always like intellectualizing things. And I'm like, well, I don't really quite agree with that. And I don't quite agree with that. And it's making it hard for me to go all in. And they're like, that's your addiction. And then I'd be like, it would always be hard for me to parcel that out where I'd be like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe I just don't agree with that. And I don't want to, but then I feel bad because like, I've gone in and out and the guys I know who have stayed in the whole time are doing great. Like it does work. Like when I check in and it's awkward because like reconnecting with those guys when they're still all programmed and I'm not, there's like a disconnect, in terms of how we're looking at things, but they're all like happy and like, especially in relationships, they've gotten so much better at relationships.
Probably
Committing to it.
Part of it is just that anything like that, drugs, sex, all of that, if it's not negative for you, it's still a time suck. So if you eliminate all of that time that you are maybe wasting doing all that stuff, or maybe wasting is the wrong word, it's probably going to help out with your success.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, when they say stuff like, imagine all that time you weren't watching porn, you were writing. You know, I'd have like 3 books like
I don't like
Tolstoy or
thinking
something.
about that.
But I actually don't know if that's true.
Right.
I think you'd find another way to.
Probably.
That's like when people are like, imagine if like Lawrence Taylor didn't do crack when he was playing football. I'm like, well, he's still the greatest defensive player of all time. So like, how many, would he have an extra MVP? I don't think so. Maybe.
And that's not even the biggest problem he had, really. I mean, he had some other issues with jail and making bad decisions on it. Maybe crack was motivating that. I don't know. But yeah. Who do you... Yeah. Had nothing to do with it. This is a show. It's a pro crack show.
Do you know any healthy, like heavy drug users?
Great question, first of all.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Said the sober guy. All right, enough of your propaganda. I don't know.
When it comes to weed, yeah.
But like heavy, like do you know anyone who's just like hits heroin once in a while, but is like altogether doing all right?
Heroin, no.
No.
Cocaine.
There's that guy that I don't buy into it. He's probably fucked up, but there's that professor that says that heroin's not that bad. You know, he's the black guy with dreads and he does it occasionally recreationally.
Yeah.
I think that's all nonsense, but
There's a lot of if you could be that guy, that's a pretty powerful constitution.
a small group of people that can just do it every once in a while, you know?
I don't think those people would talk about it because I think they would be worried about the implications it would have for people who can't handle it.
Yeah, if they were being responsible, but that guy talks about it all the time. He's almost like, try it.
Right.
Which I don't agree with.
No.
Who's like the coolest guy that you've had on your pod? Who's like like the guests and all that?
You know, it's kind of in keeping with what we're talking about. My favorite one was Ricky Williams. It was over Zoom, so that's not as good.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge football fan, and I was on shrooms during the podcast, so I was being pretty like all over the place with my questions and probably going like not respecting the fact that we didn't really know each other that well with the questions. Because sometimes like even if we get a big guest, it's hard the first time you meet them to like really get anywhere interesting because you don't know each other. Like I'd almost rather if we could like get coffee twice and then do the podcast.
That's a good idea.
Because then we could, you know, be like getting on the treadmill at like 5 miles an hour. We'd have some momentum and then.
Right.
But so you end up having the same conversation that like a lot of podcasts have where you're like, how'd you start? Where are you from? And like, but with Ricky, because I was on shrooms, I was just like, bah, 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 bah. And I know a lot about him, so it was easy. But I'd be like, I don't know, I talked about fighting my dad because me and my dad used to fist fight a lot. And then I couldn't for a while because my dad had cancer, but he just got a clean bill of health.
Oh, nice. Good.
So the gloves are going back on.
So you're going to fight him now? You survived to fight again. Old man.
I'm like, I've been going kind of easy on you, Des. Tell me to scrap it again. And then, but I asked him, I was talking about fighting my dad. And then he told a story about like, he's not, I think athletes are funnier than comedians right now. Like I think Chael Sonnen, this UFC fighter, and like Charles Barkley are like the two funniest guys in the world. Because they'll say anything and they're not worried as much about like, I don't know, they're not trying as hard. So they're more liberated, I think. But he started telling the story about his son came over to visit him and his new girlfriend, and his son was disrespectful to his new girlfriend. So Ricky's like, and he's a very calm, serene voice. He's like, so my son was disrespectful to my girlfriend. So I just punched him in the face. And I almost knocked him unconscious. But before I hit the ground, I caught him and I kissed him on the forehead. And I looked at him in the eyes and I said, do you know why I did that to you? And with tears in his eyes, he nodded yes. And I was like, whoa. I was like, that is dope. And then like randomly, I was like, have you ever hooked up with a guy? And then he's like, I was backpacking through Copenhagen. I had my head on a guy's lap and then he just leaned down and he kissed me. And he would just like, or maybe he didn't kiss him. It might've just been the head on the lap, but he could have so easily been like, hey man, I don't know you. These are like disrespectful questions. Not that, but he was just like, yeah, I'll talk about it. So I really, it was exciting talking to him.
He sounds like he was unguarded.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Those are the most interesting people. I agree with you. I don't like Zoom interviews because we did one with Sean McCorkle. And it ended up being great, but the reason that it was good is because Sean is almost basically a stand-up comedian, and he has experience doing a bunch of those kind of interviews from stuff with Errol Helwani, and he's just really good.
I'm a huge Helwani fan.
Yeah, you should check out them. Whatever they're like, it's like I forget what they call it. The Matt Mitrione minute, where it's like him. It's Sean and Matt, and then it's basically just Sean making fun of people and saying crazy shit on TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's really good at it, and he doesn't have like the thing that me and you have where we will hold back a little bit. We might not say we're worried about, offending people or whatever.
Right.
which sometimes can go bad, not necessarily for Sean, but in general, because then you say something that's like really bad and then you're like, you offend a bunch of people. But also when you're like that, I think it's just more interesting because you get shit where it's like Ricky Williams is like saying that he kissed a guy or he punched his son. Not great that he punched his son, but it's like that happens in real life and you get to hear somebody just say it and then like it's interesting that he punched him, he kissed him, and then he's like, I get it. And it's just like
he's not trying to look good.
No, he's not trying to look good at all. We're trying to look good. That's
I am. I'm trying a little bit, especially if you're gonna do it. If you're like relying on it, if you're doing it all the time, and it's like, and then I don't want to. Yeah, there's things I don't say because I haven't learned how to talk about it. Maybe there's nothing that I've done that I'm like that I think makes me a bad person. But there's things that if you don't know me, I'd be like, I'd have to talk about this for 3 hours to make it
for them to understand.
Yeah, I'd
exactly.
like have to trace it back so far and then like take you through the whole course of like what got to that point. And I just get scared. I get scared. I think I make myself worse than I am sometimes because I'm scared. And so like, but I still want to talk about the thing. So I'll just like pop out and then I'll be like, that's not how I meant to say that. And it's like, but Ricky's so stoned. He's just like, no, I'm good.
He's so stoned. He doesn't care what the outcome is.
Yeah. And like Mike Tyson's like that. Like he'll just say anything.
That's true. Tyson had that whole like thing where he read off his life from this book or whatever, and then they came out with that terrible TV show.
Yeah. I'm a big Mike Tyson fan though.
How much time have we done?
51.
51. I got to piss real bad.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but John, you have anything you want to plug?
We're gonna be. When does this come out?
Tomorrow.
Okay, so we're in Tacoma this weekend, doing stand up. Ticket sales are low. It'll be very fun. Cruise.
Get out there.
Cruise. Who can sell this many tickets in Tacoma?
I don't know shit about
John Mulaney, and that's it.
Is it Tacoma, Washington?
Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And we were just in Spokane, and then we were in Seattle. I don't mean to make excuses, but
Amy Miller, get people out to the show. She doesn't.
Is she from there?
She has some connection to Washington.
I'm gonna hit her up.
Yeah.
And then Tacoma this weekend, and then we're doing Miami and Palm Beach next week.
Hell yeah, that's gonna be fun.
That's gonna be really fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I got nothing. Well, I think I'm at Fourth Wall on the 4th, so check that out.
That makes sense. 4th on the
Ferrari,
4th.
you want to plug any ECMO stuff?
March 25th, I have a live show.
Live show March 25th. All right, thanks for joining. Join the Patreon. Join the Discord. It's free. All the 10 Minutes of Shab are on the
Spotify.
Have a good week. Bye.